Man to man, combat hand to hand, hands locked, ready for the last stand, elbow drops, kicks fade bang. If I can hate you, levitate, better settle mate, lights out, knocked out by the heavyweight.
Hi, it's Toby from Heavyweight MMA here today with Mr. Joe Lopez, head coach at Freestyle MMA in Wyndang, New South Wales, also head coach of UFC Featherweight champ Alex Volkanovski. Man, thank you so much for your time. I know this is not your favorite thing to do, but I appreciate that you've come on anyway and given me a chance to have a chat.
No worries. Thanks for having me on, bro.
Man, you're part of the world, man. Are you actually out of quarantine already, or not?
Nah, last day today.
Last day, how good's that, man?
Yeah. We've got our pass, so tomorrow we pass the police line and then we're out. We're free men.
That's awesome. What's the first thing you're going to do when you get out, mate?
Just go home, I guess, and enjoy life for a little bit.
That's it. It's kind of coincided with Sydney freeing up a little bit, right? So it should be a little bit more relaxed than when you left.
Yeah. Which the gym's open now. It's been open for a week. We've still got some restrictions, but at least we're sort of moving to some sort of normality, which is what we've been trying to do for a while.
Man, your part of the world's a beautiful, beautiful coastline, man. I've only been down there a couple of times. Once was actually to compete at Shellharbour Workers a long, long time ago, back in the 90s. But Frank Hickman actually said that it's the arse end of the world. I don't agree with him, mate.
Nah, Frank just because it's a lot better than North Carolina. He just has to rub it in,
Just jealousy, right?
It is. It's just a little bit of jealousy, but with small minds, you get small thoughts, and Frankie isn't one of the brightest guys on earth, unfortunately. He was gifted with wrestling, but, he's not very smart.
True. All right, man. Anyway, this show, we're basically a big part of it is me thinking that it'd be great to talk to people like yourself that have devoted their life to martial arts in some form or another, whether it's fighting, whether it's coaching, whether it's health and fitness, etc. But obviously, you fit the bill, man. You've been doing martial arts and involved in martial arts since from what I understand, you started judo when you're 8 years old, right?
Yeah. I started pretty young. I did that for a while, then stopped and really got into my surfing, and then all the boys up the beach started training, and I just jumped along, and they all sort of stopped, and I just kept going, and it's been a long-going process ever since.
Yeah, man. So another thing I heard you mention, or maybe I read it, that you in your teenage years, that was when you sort of wanted to, be able to defend yourself properly, and that's when you kind of kicked off. What did you get into when that sort of stage happened?
Well, all the back in those days, it was a lot different, and it was all traditional martial arts, and we just went to the nearest gym or the nearest. In those days, used to just do it out of community halls and stuff. And it was Taekwondo. So I did that for a while and got my black belt in that. I think I got to my second dan, and realised there was a lot more to training than Taekwondo. It was it was a different era. The guys used to spar a little bit different, and it wasn't so much on a point sort of system. It was if you had a black belt back in those days, you actually had to earn it by fighting your way through it. Where today, I think it's been a lot of it's been watered down with a lot of the traditional martial arts. Just not all of them, but a lot of them have been watered down just to make money out of them, which just goes along the way. People get into it. I can see it happening with a lot of the arts. Even BJJ, in a sense, is sort of a lot of them are steering that way, where you can buy your belts these days if you really, really want it. Which is unfortunate.
Yeah, man.
For a while there, to have a BJJ black belt was pretty prestigious, where I think a lot of the guys now, there's a few out there that are just buying them, which is unfortunate, because I think, to have a BJJ black belt, it should mean something, which meant in back in my day, whether you had a karate or a Taekwondo black belt, it meant you earned it by, proving yourself, either sparring or fighting or whatever,
Yeah, man. And back when you did start up the Taekwondo, what were the options? There was Taekwondo, obviously karate was probably around, and you'd done some judo, so that must have been around. Other than that, there wasn't really a great deal, right?
No, there was the Kung Fu guys, obviously. We actually got there was a couple of guys we'd actually rent a hall ourselves because, I'm going back to an era where there was no YouTube. You were lucky to get any sort of books or anything that, about martial arts. So you really wanted to know what you were doing was right, or for me anyway, that's the way I looked at it. And I'd go and train anywhere and everywhere just to learn, yeah, like I said, we'd hire a little hall. There was a couple of black belts, karate, other taekwondo guys and karate guys, and we'd mix up everything, like we'd, obviously being taekwondo, we'd have pretty good kicks, and the karate guys, like a couple of the Kyokushinkai guys there, they were right into their leg kicks and everything else. And I picked that up, and then I started, into the boxing, and that just changed everything altogether, realizing that, a lot of the traditional was, they put this thing in your head, one punch and you'd finish the fight, and then you start boxing and, you give the guy a good punch and he comes back on you and you realize, shit, there's more to fighting than this one punch stops people. Obviously you can, but, when you've got a trained athlete and the guy's trying to knock your head off and you're trying to knock his head off, you both come to the table with a certain skill set, and this, one punch, one finish, it don't work against a skilled opponent, because they're usually tough, hard guys.
Yeah, man. And then, so you're doing boxing, you've done taekwondo, and then did you end up in the early days, as we know, there wasn't any much Thai boxing in the early days. Did you get into the stage or competing when there was there was kung fu titles and then there was kickboxing titles before that kind of Thai boxing era came in?
Yeah. That was these. What would you call them? Back around when I was, there was these kick kung fu championships they used to have, where, they were really unregulated, some of the things you'd see there, because they were really no rules. So you could go in there and just, but it was more like a tournament type thing, and the winner would end up winning, but you could throw, you could do anything. And it was held on a wooden floor, which made it even worse, guys getting slammed on there and the fight would be over. But it was a different era. And again, it was very, they were very ruled by if you were one of their boys, you'd always get the preferential treatment, and if you weren't, well, you were put on the side and made like a sacrificial lamb to someone that was going to put a beat down on you.
Yeah. Actually, you just made it pop into my mind about the wooden floor. I remember one tournament. It was a little bit later than that. It was just the start of sort of the Thai boxing sort of era. Jamie Tosland, I don't know if you know the guy. He arranged a tournament and competed in a tournament that was in a squash court. And these guys were fighting. I remember a guy getting punched and his head cracking against the wall and coming back, and fighting is just crazy. So unregulated, like you said,
Yeah. Well, it was a different era. I think while Messingham used to do the tournaments down here, I think that a lot of them were at Liverpool Community Centre or Civic Centre it was. And that's where they do it. It was funny because the fights used to be on the stage and all the spectators were down the bottom, watching it from the stage, which is sort of a lot different than the tournaments are held today, where, the mats are on the ground and everybody sits around the mats there. You'd be on stage and everybody be sitting in the crowd watching from, see how you went on the stage there,
That's it, man. And who were the sort of the fighters back in that era that were of note, like around Sydney region?
Paul Grimer was probably one of the one that sticks to mind, because I'm still friends with Paul and he's still around. He runs his what is it?
Bull Gym.
Yeah, the Bull Gym. I'm getting mixed up with Nick Stone, because he's got the Bulldog Gym, but he's got the Pitbull or something like that.
It's Pitbull Gym, out of Wentworthville.
Yeah, and I remember, Paul back in the day, competing and that sort of stuff. But any of the other guys, man, it's been too many years and too many drinks in between,
That's it, man. Actually, I trained with Paul a bit in the past as well. He's a good guy, man. Fought on a couple of his shows as well. He's always been good to me, man.
Yeah, Paul's always. I like Paul. He's a pretty honest, genuine guy. He tells it how it is. I'm a bit the same way as Paul. I don't like to bullshit or tell any sort of lies or anything. And he'll always tell you how it is. And I like those type of guys.
That's it, man. No, he definitely he's put in the hard yards as a fighter and also as a coach now as well. Yeah. So man, as far as you went for the tournaments and competing in kickboxing, etc., how did that work?
Well, look, I lined up a couple of kickboxing fights and they fell through. And at that stage, I was, getting into. I had my security business. I was just starting out, and I sort of, me being the way I am, I used to hate not being there. To make sure everything was run right, and then to have some guy pull out or not show up, it just was pretty disheartening. And I just sort of went, well, I'm just going to head in my way and just concentrate on my business and follow the money, and my passion and everything else went into running and starting my business and making it as big as I could, and it did. Started with one or two little clubs, and then all of a sudden it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, to where I had like 50, 60 guys working for me in Wollongong, and I had 100 plus guys in Sydney. So it was a massive operation.
What was the business name, man?
Inside Security.
Inside Security.
And
cool.
In Sydney, it was Inside Security Sydney. And I had in Sydney, I had a partner there, Big Ben, Big E. He was. We're still good friends to this day. He was like 160 kilo Samoan boy. Hence the name Big Ben. He was a big, massive Islander. Just not as in a lot of them can carry a little bit of extra weight. He just had massive arms, big legs. He was a big boy. Yeah. And people that were around that era would probably know him from all the doors. I mean, it's not a good way of putting it, but those shootings at the black market, the front page he was the guy on the front door stopping everybody getting in, and that sort of when they shot those bikies in there, it was all front page of every newspaper in Australia at that stage.
Yeah, was that when one of the officers was shot? Security officers shot in the arm. Was that one or a different one?
No security guys. I think they shot 3 or 4 banditos or something. I think they were. I'm pretty sure they were. And it was a couple of rebels anyway. Shot them, downstairs. I think they shot 4 of them: the sergeant of arms and 3 or 4 other members.
Yeah.
And But in Wollongong, they shot a security. I mean, security guards have been shot all over the place.
Yeah.
And look, that's why, in a sense, we got out of Sydney. There were, just after 2000, a lot of the bikies started going in and buying a lot of the nightclubs and everything else. And there was a hell of a lot of shootings and stuff around. And, Ben and I had a meeting about it. A lot of the guys that worked for us were his family, and we just sort of went, man, we don't want any of our boys or family members getting caught in the crossfire or something like that. So we just pulled the pin, and got out. And then it got pretty ugly out there, and to me, it's never been, the money's great, but it's never been about the money for me, and I was pretty comfortable in what I was doing and how I was doing it. So we just got out.
Yeah. Now, back a long time ago in the 90s, I actually got involved in security as well, just as a side job. And it seems to, for us back then, me and my cousin training martial arts, and we thought, all right, let's jump into this. It kind of relates somehow. Is that kind of part of the reason that you got involved, or no? Because it kind of links a little bit, right? Like you're training physical sports and contact sports. It's the same. You can get a chance to test yourself a little bit at times, right?
Yeah. Well, to me, I sort of fell into it. I worked in the building industry, and we had a recession, and the building just shut down. And
you're a bricklayer, right?
I was doing my trade, and straight after that, the government gave us like these courses to do, and I did a hospitality course. And while I was doing the hospitality course, they gave me a job, and I really enjoyed it. It was just a different. Instead of being there, with a bunch of blokes, on a building site, working in a club with girls and everybody, in a happy sort of mood and, trying to enjoy themselves. I thought, Jesus, is a lot better than bloody laying bricks.
That's it.
And and I was working behind the bar and doing a bit of waitering and just doing my my business management course or hospitality management course. And a guy had grabbed one of the waitresses there one night, and I grabbed him and I put him in a wrist lock. And then the security came and they grabbed him, and he sort of belted the two security guys and grabbed the manager, and I again grabbed him and I put him in another wrist lock, and I took him outside, and all the guys that were working, the local guys that were drinking, and I said, what was that you did, And I just said, oh, look, I do martial arts, always a bit sort of quiet and humble, about it. And then the next week I look at my roster and I'm on the front door, so that's how I got into it. And then I thought, this security is a lot better than having to,
work for a living.
serve people or do anything. You're just standing there and you're talking to everyone. I thought, this is better, and you got to talk to more girls, and I just I liked it. I was never a bully guard or anything, and I've been sort of fortunate enough to teach security courses, and I've been gone around, in Dubai. I went and taught at the police academy out there, unarmed self-defense and all that sort of stuff. And to me, like when I have taught it, I always tell them, your mouth is your best weapon, and that's the way I've always done it. My last resort is to lay hands or touch anybody. Because if you start swinging punches, everybody swings punches. And I've seen a lot of, I'm not a big guy, but I've seen a lot of big guys get bashed up and, bad things happen to them because, like I always say to people, you hit people, you'll forget who you hit, but the people you hit will never forget you, and one day or another, somebody's going to come back and get you. Where if you go out and with a mentality of trying to be friends with everyone, when you do get upset, people know that, that they must have done something wrong to upset you, and that's the sort of mentality I always gone out with, just to make friends and enjoy myself, not to make enemies.
Yeah, like you said, the mouth's definitely the best weapon, man. Early on in the security, I've always been 70 to 80 kilos, man. So I'm not much use when it comes to a group or anything like that. And I've been thrown in clubs and pubs by myself in the start. So you learn to talk, right? You got no other weapon. I'm not going to do much by myself. So yeah, you start to learn your verbal judo, right?
Yeah, and I was always just scared of getting charged. I just didn't want anybody to, because no matter what, if you do, people always want to fight you, but as soon as you get the better of them, they run to the police. And I just never wanted to be charged with assault or anything else, even though a lot of people have tried over the years. But it always comes down to that,
Yeah, man. And you totally left that behind, or you're still doing some like smaller security company?
No, I still own the company. I just I've got other guys that run it for me. I still got an input. I can't let things go, but I trust the guys that I got working for me, and it's still there. I probably find that I've been offered to sell it and that, but I don't know. I started, it's like my baby. I built it from nothing, which I did. I remember back in the day making $60, extra in my pay, and I used to just say, wow, I made $60 for getting my mates a couple of jobs, and it was probably like a couple of $100 today, but back and I started it from nothing, and I never put any money into it. I just, whatever money I got, I just got bigger and bigger, like sort of started with getting a couple of guys for different clubs and making $20 for each guy I got to, at the moment, with this COVID, we picked up a contract with New South Wales Health, and man, we just can't get enough guys at the moment. And now with the pubs and clubs opening this weekend, man, we're struggling. So if any guards are out there looking for work, I've got plenty of work.
That's a good thing, man. And along the way, I read that you'd helped to do security for Ice-T, Deep Purple, Michael Hutchins, the Ramones, Run DMC, Rage Against the Machine, Choir Boys, Radiators, etc. Pretty big deal, man. Must have a lot of memories from working those gigs, right?
Yeah. Like I guess any band that came and toured in the 90s, we did security, or I did security for them, you know, apart from the real big guys that played in, you know, like even those gigs, you know, like if a Michael Jackson, I got asked to work him and that, but I was usually too busy doing my own thing that I didn't want to do them. You know, like I said, I was too busy like running my clubs and doing my gigs. You know, I worked that biggest, what was it, the Concert for Life, was the biggest concert in Australia's history. I worked that concert. I actually worked it with Nick Stone. Me and him worked the back door to where all the celebrities and everything came through. We were running that back in the day. Yeah, that was pretty big, you know. I think there was like 160,000 people to that concert. It was held in, what's that park there in Randwick?
It's not Centennial. No, it's not Centennial.
Yeah, Centennial Park, yeah. Centennial Park. Yeah, it was massive. It was a massive concert. Yeah.
Amazing, man. And you mentioned that things have changed. Like in the past, you didn't have your CCTV, etc. Now you got CCTV, people using voice recorders. It can work both ways, right? Like on one hand, it can protect you in some ways, but in one way, people can also come back at you if you've done anything vaguely wrong as well, or implicate you in something.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, it has. And I mean, you know, no disrespect to the people out there, but you know, the quality of guards and the guards that are out there today are nothing to back in, you know, the 90s, you know, the 80s, 90s. They were a different breed of guards that were doing it, you know. And I guess when they brought in the fingerprints and everything else, a lot of people, you know, all the hard guys and guys that were doing it at that stage, a lot of them I just know a lot of the guys that I work with just said, that's my ticket out. You know, no one's taken my fingerprints, you know, because a lot of these guys are old school hard men, and they value their privacy and everything else. And there was no way they were going to jeopardize, even though they did nothing wrong. They just had that old school mentality, I guess.
And back then, what was the general sort of cases and that happening back then? Oh, you mentioned before lots of fights at concerts, etc. That's the general thing, yeah. People drinking and fighting, yeah.
Yeah, it was sort of part and parcel, but like I said, we had a different era, you know. Like for me back in those days, I was the lightest guy that I had working for me, and I was 85 kilos. Everybody that worked for me was over 100K. I think there was a couple of 90-kilo guys, but they were all, you know, they were, you know, like a fit, you know, chiseled 90, you know, and all were something special, you know. Most of the guys, you know, either they could fight or they were big, you know, and we had like a pretty special camaraderie. We all got along. If you didn't fit in, you didn't fit in, you know, and there wasn't that many security companies. So if you started with me, you were one of my boys. If you started with, you know, like my competition probably in those days was Southern Cross with Bob Malden. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. You know, and we were the two big guys down our way. In Sydney, there was a couple. Bob had a lot of stuff in Sydney as well. He did a lot of the bigger concerts and travelled a lot with the you know the who's who of the day. You know, if Dire Straits came out, he'd follow them right around Australia, and that sort of thing. You know, at first we were enemies, but then when not enemies, we were how could you say competitors. But then a lot of people just jumped in on the industry, and then Bob and I sort of aligned ourselves, and we became really, really good friends, you know. And yeah, unfortunately, I think it was doing a concert. I can't remember who it was. It was somebody big, and he went for a ride with him, and he came off his bike. He got a blood clot. And I was speaking to him the week before, and he was in hospital, and he said, "Yeah, I'm fine." The next day, or a couple of days later, his son rang me up and said, you know, he'd passed, and wow, it really hit me hard, you know, because he was a big man. He was a big man of the scene, and he's been doing security longer than me. And like I used to say to Bob and I had earned our stripes on the doors, you know, working it back in the day where a lot of these guys just jumped in looking for money and you know, not, I guess just undercutting and really ruin the whole industry, you know, because to this day, a lot of the guys are still getting really, really crappy money that they were probably getting 10, 15 years ago. And the only reason is because, I've lost contracts for raising giving a guy $2 pay rise, and not for myself, giving it to the guard, and I lose the contract for $2,
Yeah.
And then the guy that was working for me at this venue goes and works for the guy that I lost the contract for the same money, and then they whinge about why the money's still shit,
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's gotten watered down a lot too. It's gotten watered down with a lot of imported labor, etc. Right, and the quality, like you said, they're not the same quality as it was many years ago. The quality's watered down because of the cost savings that have had to come into play because of the competition, etc. Right, so not so good quality now.
Yeah, 100%. There's I won't say who or what, but if you're in the industry, what's taken over. There's two lots of people that are taking over the industry, and they sort of butchered it completely. I mean, this at the moment we are lifting the rates because again, it's supply and demand, and they haven't been running any courses. Number one, and number two, a lot of people have to be double jabbed, or you're not going to get. You can't work in a pub or club if you're not double jabbed. If you're working for New South Wales Health, if you're not double jabbed, you're not getting any work. And it's made it like we've had to say, man, you're going to have to start paying us more, otherwise we can't get any guards. And people are realising that, hey, we've got to start paying a bit more money, which is good, because I've always been a firm believer in paying. If you gave a guard $50 an hour, I'm not going to have trouble finding them. But when you're giving them $20, and I mean, I've seen guys getting $10 an hour, on building sites, and it's just so wrong that guys are getting $10 an hour.
What you're saying, $20, that's what I was getting back in the 90s, man. So like you said, things should have changed a lot by then. It should be at least fucking double by now, you'd imagine,
Well, I say it, and man, I've told guys, I've tried to not get caught up in it. And like I said to some guy the other day, he goes, another competitor, he wanted some guards. And I said, mate, I'm not going to do it for nothing. I'm not, I'd rather pay a bit more and you get a better type of guard than, you pay less and you get these watered down guys that you have to go around and make sure that they're still there because they go home,
Yeah.
Because, if you're getting $10 an hour and you're on a job site for 12 hours, you go there for the first 2 hours and you go home and then you come back before the next guy comes. Yeah. And I've seen that on so many sites,
Yeah, exactly. Man, I wanted to jump back to your journey of martial arts too, man. So I was reading and listening to a few things on you, and you've traveled around a lot, right? Thailand, India, Himalayas, the Nile, different places like this. You live with some monks, etc. It sounds like a very interesting story, man. Like what have you done as far? Was that after or through the security or through your life that you've done all these travels and training, etc.?
That was before I started my security business. I was working in nightclubs and pubs, but I hadn't started my business. So I started that when I got back from my travels. And it's, to this day, I've always sort of been, I get bored really easy with things I do. So I really need to be stimulated. So I set myself a goal, and once I reach it, then I go, shit, I need to set myself another goal. And I really sort of go with it. And I really love adventure. I love seeing new things and going new places. And, I've always sort of, I guess, chased the adrenaline, I was, done rock climbing and you name the sport or whatever. If it's the only thing I haven't really got into is base jumping or anything like that. But that came as I got a bit older, and as you get older, you're not as, I guess, as you start to think a little bit different. You're not as game as you were as when you were younger. I don't think you have as much adrenaline, I guess, as much testosterone going through your body, so you don't chase it as much, But I've always been, I guess, chased adrenaline,
Yeah, man. Actually, just talking about that, I was thinking about it when I was thinking about the security side of things. When you start off in security, you kind of want the drama, you want these things, and after a while you settle down. It's the same in the rest of life, right? You don't mind it, you're looking for that, and after a while you settle down, you want a bit more peace and and quiet, right?
Yeah, well, like I said, I never wanted the fights and all that, but I remember when I first started, I go, shit, I hope there's some bikes tonight, you know.
Yeah.
And I was, and again, it was after one of the guys I worked with. He pointed it out to me. You know, we'd got into a situation when there was half a dozen guys, and it was just me and him, and we sorted them out. And he looked at me and he says, "Feels good, doesn't it?" I went, "Yeah." He goes, "That adrenaline, eh?" And then it clicked to me. That's what we were chasing. We were chasing that unknown of, you know, having, you know, not that we wanted to test ourselves or anything, but we were chasing that adrenaline, that drama, you know, that fear thing, you know, and, you know, facing it and, you know, coming back and going, yeah, we done it, you know, and I guess that's it. That's why guys base jump, and that just, I know a couple of guys that do it, and they shit themselves every time they do it, but it's after they jump, that adrenaline rush afterwards is what they keep doing it for. And I guess that's why we did what we were doing, because we were just chasing that adrenaline.
And why people are fighting too, right? Like willingly pitting yourself against another trained killer in the ring it's an amazing thing to do. And, you know, obviously nearly everyone says that they're afraid to do it. Even the world champions, etc. When they're getting in there, they're worried, but then obviously the training and everything carries them through, unless they're a special character that doesn't get worried about things.
100%. And I think if you don't worry about it, then I think there is something wrong. You're either psychotic or you're going to get beat up, because I think you need that that fear or those butterflies before you enter anything, because if you don't, I think that's when you do get hurt, you know. And I've always said it, you know, for like people say, do you get nervous, you know, like before a fight or before there is a drama? I go, no, I don't. The only time I get nervous is just before it happens. Before that, it doesn't enter my mind. But when it's just about to happen, then I start to feel the fear and everything else. And after a while, you know that it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because it's going to make you, I guess, see things that you normally wouldn't see, and react a lot quicker than you normally would, because you're setting your body up into that fight or flight mode, and you're there to fight, I guess, and you're going to take it.
That guy behind you is pretty staunch, mate.
Man.
Hey, man. So, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about psychological prep. Actually, you just touched on it, because like you're known for trying to keep everything calm. You and Volk, etc., try to keep things calm, and you like to throw a bit of banter around in the dressing room, etc. What's your take on how you prepare you guys for that? Because it's kind of different for everyone, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm all about, you know, if anybody knows whether it's us or the city kickboxing guys, we're all about the banter and having a laugh and being relaxed and everything else, you know, and we don't take ourselves too seriously. And I just know a lot of, you know, I've just been in the dressing, especially in the early days, you know, we'd be sitting there having a laugh and, you know, putting shit on each other and everything else. And people are looking at us like we're weirdos, you know, and go, man, do you guys know he's here to fight? And everyone's so serious, you know. Where we don't take ourselves seriously at all, you know. I mean, if you go in the back and if you're ever fortunate enough to share the change room with Tai Tuivasa or Tyson Pedro, man, it's a party with those guys. Those guys have so much fun backstage. You know, they got their music pumping, they're singing, they're dancing. Mate, they're having a great time, you know, and that's the way we are in a sense too. When we don't take it too seriously till we're ready to go, you know. When you're getting your hands wrapped, that's sort of one stage, you know. Then you start warming up, and then you know, it builds from there. You know, I guess I always like to put it down. If you've ever seen that Mike Tyson documentary where he says. He's in the back change room and he's scared and he's doubting himself and he's worried, and then he gets his hands wrapped and then he walks to the cage. He's sort of still half doubting himself, but as soon as he gets into the ring, he's the king of the world. And I always sort of put myself like a mantra in that sort of sense that, you know, you shouldn't let your adrenaline pump too early. Otherwise, you could fall flat on your face, because adrenaline can be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy, So you've got to really manage that adrenaline, and not let it pump too early and let it get to you, and then your mind as well, because if you start stressing and worrying, it's going to do all sorts of stuff to your body that you're probably not even aware of. So the more relaxed and the better you can be before you actually go out there. When you go there, you're hitting your peak at the right time instead of, at the end of the right time.
Yeah, man.
And that's the way I think about it anyway.
And it's a big difference between fighters, right? Because we all know many guys that train really well, look like world beaters in the gym, but that doesn't transfer to the ring because they don't have that right mentality to keep it all calm and then just, be at the right time peaking in there, right?
Yeah, 100%. And you'll see that, they like the term, the gym fighters, the guys that they do perform, and you go, wow, this guy's going to kill it. And as soon as they have a fight, they just fall apart, and I've seen so many guys like that, or guys that they're really, really good till they lose. And then once they lose, they just never win again, because at the end of the day, they were only doing it because they were feeding off their wins. And as soon as they faced adversity, they fell over, and then there's the other guys that, that go really, really, like when they spar at 10, and then in my experience, guys that spar really, really hard all the time, when they go to fight, they never transfers. And I always use the thing that there's a dial and it goes to 10, and that's all it goes to. And because they're going at 10 all the time, when they get into the fight, there's no number 11 on the dial, so they haven't got that one more to go up to. So my thing is, you always spar between 7 and 9. You never go to 10, because you always want that one more little notch to go up for when you're fighting.
Yeah, man, that's a good point.
Yeah, and that's what. Sorry.
No, keep going.
No, that's what I've found in my experience with the guys that go really, really hard. They never seem to be successful, or never bring that same energy into their fights. They might go all right, but they never become champions, for some reason.
There's a lot of thoughts these days too about dialing back on the sparring, right, to protect the fighter's brain, etc., from CTE, and just fighting or just pushing the sparring up as you really need to do it, getting closer to some bigger fights, but dialing back on the continuous hard sparring, right?
Oh yeah, I'm a big believer in not sparring hard. Look, you do need it sometimes, especially as you're like, if you've never had a fight before. I think sometimes you really need to test yourself, so it doesn't happen in the fight where some guy whacks you hard and you go, what the hell is this, and you buckle. I'd rather you buckle in the gym. But as the guys become more and more experienced, there's no need, the risk reward, it's not worth it, not for brain damage, but also, there's no point going into a fight with sore shins or a busted elbow or anything else. You, like I said, you got to keep it between that 7 and 9, and as the fight gets closer, the importance of having those really, really good sparring partners is what's going to get you through that next. So when it is your turn to fight, you go in there in the best condition of your life. You're not going in. I mean, they're all going to carry some sort of little niggly injury, but you don't want your shins busted up or your shoulders out, and then that brings self-doubt into yourself, and you don't have that same energy that you would if you came into that fight without anything,
Yeah, man. And speaking of sparring partners, Jamie Malarkey, how fucking good was his fight recently, man? I was so happy for that one. He's from my neck of the woods.
Yeah, man. Unreal. Jamie's just getting better and better.
Exactly,
he's
man.
a terrific guy.
Leaps and bounds, right?
Yeah. And you saw what is it? I forget the saying now, but he's putting in the work, and he's getting the rewards for it. He's sometimes I think Jamie's just a little bit too tough for his own goodness, and he does like he's got a busted hand, and he still wants to spar and everything else. And Ross and I got to, pull him back and go, man, you need a rest, got to rest your hand. You got to do this, but he's, oh man, I think you can hit that guy with a brick over the head and he's just come back on you, he's one tough man.
Awesome, man. Actually,
but his skills getting better. But yeah,
for sure, man. It's actually amazing that they're up on the coast. I'm from the coast. I left a long time ago. I've been overseas for more than a decade now, and now my mother can go back and visit it. There'll be an MMA gym around the corner. I'll go visit these guys when I'm back next. Once this stupid COVID thing eases up a little bit. Man, only a couple more things I want to talk to you about. One was obviously you've seen the development of the sport through MMA, etc. And I want to know your thoughts. You have spoken a couple of times on that your guys do strength and conditioning that they're working with. Did you say Baymed or something for for strength and conditioning? And I'm not sure if you guys are using Jordan, the fight dietitian. Some of your guys, are they using him or not?
Yeah. We use Geordie, and I push Geordie. Geordie's probably one of the best out there. He's very knowledgeable, and he just doesn't sit on his hands about it. He's always still researching. He's a great guy to talk to, and he's got the fighter's best interest. And people say these 1% sort of things, and they're the sort of things that are going to get you through. And especially those weight cuts, you really, really, in this day and age, when you've got guys like Geordie and that know what they're talking about, and you should be using them. If you don't, you're really setting yourself up to, you've got to think you're a young man now, but one day hopefully you're going to be an old man like me, and you want your body to be still okay and still be able to train or enjoy your life with your wife or your kids or whatever you have. And not be messed up inside or anywhere else because you did some stupid things, and some of the things, I see it even at UFC level, some of the things, it blows my mind, no disrespect to them, but man, the Brazilians are some of the worst, what they do to their fighters. They just got no idea. Not all of them, but some of them, it blows me out. I've seen one of the girls there. She was cutting weight, and the guy had her, like the weigh-ins were the next day, and he had her in a sweatsuit on those Stairmaster things, doing that. And she was, I was in the gym watching, and I was there just doing my own cardio, and I was on the bike for 40 minutes, and she was on there for 40 minutes and still there after I left, I'm going, this poor girl, she's got to fight the next day. I'm going, fuck, you could have picked, like a bike or a sauna or a bath. There's so many better options. Put her on a stair climber.
Bring her to the brink of death before the fight. Great idea, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. And then to put a sweatsuit in that she's cooking in, I'm just, mate, there's so many easier ways, but man, and I see it a lot with the boxers too. Not all, but a lot of the guys that I've had to deal with that I was with in the past, and you try and educate them, but they don't want to listen. They've got this mentality. This is the way we used to do it. This is the way we're doing it. And I go, man, there's actually science out there that says there's easier and better ways than to cook someone's body.
Yeah.
It's easy to, and like I said, gone are those days now. There's guys out there like Geordie that study it and know it, and man, if you don't use them, man, you're a real mug. Honestly, I can't recommend these guys. And same as the strength and conditioning. If you're going to some guy and you're a fighter, you don't want to go to some guy that's going to kill you, where you can't train the way you normally do because you're that sore or you're that, because all it's got to do is just lead to injuries. It's just the body can only do so much. So you've got to work with guys that are clever and understand the body. You can't just, go hard or go home. Those days are over, man. There's science to it. And, same as nutrition. There's so much stuff out there now that you don't have to be back in the dark ages where I started, you don't need to do that,
Yeah,
and I'm a firm believer in using all that stuff.
That's good, man. And
just
how much
make sure you get a good guys.
That's true. How much of a difference do you think it makes if you take a guy like Volk and you employ all this proper strength and conditioning, nutrition, rest and recovery, how much percentage you reckon would it make a difference to a fighter at that elite level? Like, obviously it's not going to be the larger portion of the, because they got to have skills, they got to have cardio, got to have all that, but adding on these extra things that have been learned over the years, how much of a difference do you think it makes to them?
It makes a huge difference. Like I said, it's just, you think if you've done hard, and we've all been down here, we've all overtrained. If you overtrain, it's worse than undertrain. You know, you have to wait for your body to get better before you can start really training again after overtraining. So a lot of these guys, that, go to, no disrespect to them, CrossFit or something like that, or they do some sort of bodybuilding type weights in that sort of sense, or they haven't got a structured program, you're just setting yourself up for failure, because, you can do it for a little bit, but sooner or later, something's going to break. I always use the example of, cutting a football paddock with a lawnmower. Sure, you can do it, but I'm telling you what, after a couple of times, that lawnmower is going to break because it wasn't designed to cut a football paddock. It was designed to cut your front grass, and that's the same as our bodies. You can't just keep pushing them to those limits, because something will break. You'll either get hurt, you'll get an injury, through sparring or something else. Something will give eventually.
That's it, man. And we've already been here a long time. I just got a couple of quick things to finish with. One, I was talking to Colby. I asked him if he could give me some dirt on you, and unfortunately he said no. But I'll just let you know. The other day we were talking about that fight circus thing, and we were talking about how they've got like two versus one fights. And what he was saying was he reckons that him versus a prime Joe Lopez and a Volk, he reckons he could take both of you out in one go. And he reckons that he's also not scared of doing 1,000 jumping sprawls, man. So I'm thinking I wouldn't mind throwing in a little bit to charity if you can do 1,000 jump sprawls for you, mate. What do you reckon? He deserves it, right?
1,000 or 100?
If he does 1,000, he said I don't want to do 1,000 jump sprawls. What do you think? 100, 100's easy for him then. Throw in 100 for him for me.
Well, we if the boys play up, they get 100 jumping sprawls after class. So it's not something that they're not used to.
So it's not
doing them all at once. No. I do them in groups of 20. But yeah, if they've been playing up, they get the bonus round, as I call it. I've got a few different bonus rounds, but that's one of my bonus rounds. And they can do it. I'd like to see him see how many he could do in one go.
Yeah, I'll get him to do that, mate, and we'll see how many. I'll throw in some of the charity if you can do that one. And the one question for the big fight coming up, Makhachev Hooker. A lot of people are talking about this one. It's quite popular online. Mixed decisions. A lot of passionate Makhachev people. A lot of passionate Hooker people. What are your predictions for this fight?
Man, look, Dan's a friend of mine. I was in his corner the last fight. You can't go past Dan, and Dan's like. He's a different beast to most normal people. Dan just don't give a shit about nothing. So he'll fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. He's a tough man. You see it himself. He wears shots like anyone else. If Dan comes with his A game and everything else, watch out. The only downside is that none of the boys are going to be in his corner. I think the only one's probably going to be Frank. Just because of the time and everything else. So I'm not sure who else will be there, but because it's on Fight Island and everything else. So can't go down by my man Dan Hooker.
That's it, man. Yeah, I got Dan too, man. And man, so closing up, just anyone that's interested in training down at Freestyle MMA in Wyndang, New South Wales, Australia, got boxing, BJJ, wrestling, etc. Right? Anyone wants to join in? Yeah.
We're open to anybody. We've got a really good kids program. Everyone thinks, and sometimes it turns people off because they think that we're only there for elite athletes and everything else. But everyone has to start somewhere. So we cater from the beginners, all the way through, and everyone gets treated with respect. We haven't, we really, at the end of the day, we get rid of all the idiots and ego heads. So we've always got like a really good bunch of friendly, easy to train with people, and the idiots normally just don't last, because they get weeded out. Somebody normally gives them a lesson that they don't want to receive. And
Awesome,
so
man.
we always got good people.
That's it. That's great. All right, Joe, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it so much. And I hope that in the future, sometime along the way, we can have a talk again.
Yeah, for sure. No worries, Toby. Thanks for having me on, and good luck with your podcast.
Great. Thank you.